My name is Cohen. In this video, I'm going to show you how I like to set up a React TypeScript project from start to finish. I'm also going to show you how to install ESLint and Prettier so that we can enforce good code standards and automatically format our code as we go. So let's go ahead and dive in. Go ahead and open up a terminal and then go into the directory you would like to create a project in. For me, I have a coding/React directory. Next, we're going to use something called Create React App to create our project. Create React App is a bootstrap for React that will kind of create a lot of the files every React application needs, and it sets up a lot of that stuff for us. It's probably the most popular way to create a React application. So go ahead and type npx, which is a command to run a node script from npm. And then we're going to call create React app. Next, we're going to put in the name. So I'm going to call this my app. You can name it whatever you would like. And then we're going to specify the template option as TypeScript. And then go ahead and press enter. And it usually takes a while. So I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back. Okay, so now that Create React App is done, you should see something like this. Next, we're going to cd into the directory of your project. Mine is my app. And then once you're in the directory, we're going to open up Visual Studio Code, or you can open up the folder and editor of your choice. But for me, I can just do code period to open up the current directory in Visual Studio Code. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is set up some of our configuration files. The first one being the TypeScript Config. So go ahead and open up this file here, tsconfig.json. These are the settings for when we compile from TypeScript to JavaScript so we can run it in React. That's how TypeScript worked. For this tutorial, I just want to quickly show you how to get everything set up. I'll be honest, I do not go through this setup every time I create a project. I have a kind of like template and I just copy paste, change the settings as needed. So I actually went ahead and uploaded these config files. There will be a link down in the description. Go ahead and open up that link right now. And we're going to go ahead and scroll down to the tsconfig.json. Go ahead and copy this all. And we're going to go ahead and erase everything and replace it. Save that file. You can go ahead and look on the TypeScript documentation. Just look up tsconfig. You can read what all of these settings do. I left some comments for some of the lesser known settings. An important one is the include directory. That tells TypeScript where our source code will live. For us, it's in the source directory, any directory, and any file. It'll automatically pick the TypeScript files from inside of that directory. All right, next we're going to install ESLint and Prettier so we can get some code formatting going on. Again, there are quite a few packages that we'll need to install. So I went ahead and pre-wrote the script command that we can use to install it. So go ahead and go to the dependencies, just copy this whole command here. Next, we're going to open up a terminal in VS Code. You can do this on a Windows by typing Control-Shift-P, on a Mac Command-Shift-P. And then if you type in terminal, go ahead and find new integrated terminal. That should open one up here. We're going to use npm, which is Node Package Manager, to install these packages. If you're not familiar, please go ahead and read some more about npm. You can find a lot of information online about that. Go ahead and paste that command. While it's installing, basically it is installing them to the dev dependencies. That's what the -D means. We're installing ESLint. We're installing Prettier. And then the rest of the packages are some configurations for ESLint. This one will help kind of bridge ESLint and Prettier together. There's also a config for ESLint plugin React. All right, so those packages have finished installing. Next, we're going to install some extensions to VS Code. One is ESLint and the other is Prettier. And this will allow us to see those errors in VS Code. So go ahead and go to the extensions tab. And first we're going to search for Prettier. Should be the top one. And I already have it, but you can install that. The next one we need is ESLint. The top one here. As you can see, almost 14 million downloads, so it is very popular. And again, you can install this. In the future, I'm going to make a video for my VS Code dev environment. I'll go over all my themes, my settings, any extensions that are really helpful, so stay tuned for that. But for now, just install those 2 extensions. Once the extensions are installed, we need to create the configuration file for ESLint. So go ahead and go back to the GitHub link, find the .eslintrc.js file. We're going to copy that, and then go back to VS Code, and we're going to make a new file in the root directory, .eslintrc.js, and go ahead and paste it. So if you're not familiar, ESLint is a linter. A linter takes a set of rules, which are like your code standards, and it checks all of your source code to make sure it is following those rules. ESLint has some built-in recommended settings, so we are using those. And then we're also using the settings from our configuration packages that we just installed in the previous step. If you want to know a little bit more about ESLint and maybe know what these settings do, go ahead and go to the ESLint website, and there is a ton of documentation that you can check out. There are some comments that I left here, so hopefully that can help you know what some of these rules do. But we're going to save this file, and as soon as you save it, if everything's working properly, you should see some red squigglies, and it's coming from ESLint. Don't do anything with it yet. This is just telling us, hey, this file doesn't meet your code standards, but we're not done yet. We still have to configure Prettier. So go back to the GitHub and copy the prettierrc.json, and then we're going to make a new file in the root directory, .prettierrc.json. Now, be careful with the spelling of these 2 file names. They're a little bit tricky, and if they aren't exact, the extensions won't recognize them and your settings will be a little bit off. Go ahead and paste that. Again, you can search for prettierrc.json in Google, and you'll find some helpful information about all of the available settings. Briefly, this configuration, I like to use 2 spaces for my tabs, so we're setting that up here. It is also using a single quote. So in JavaScript, you can use a double or single quotes. This file forces it to use single quotes for the most part. Okay, so we can close out of those 2 files now. The next thing we need to do is configure some settings for VS Code. So when we save our file, it will automatically run ESLint and Prettier and fix all of the major issues for us, which is pretty cool. So go ahead and type Control-Shift-P to get the command palette. That's what it's called. And then we're going to type settings and choose Open Workspace Settings JSON. Should be empty. Then go ahead and go back to the GitHub link and find the settings.json file. We're going to copy that. We're going to erase it here and replace it. Basically, it will say that we're going to format on save, and the action on save is going to fix all from ESLint. The packages we installed are actually kind of configuring Prettier to pipe its errors into ESLint. That way you see them as red squigglies in VS Code, and then when we format it, ESLint can fix the Prettier issues, which is the formatting, like indentation, and the linting issues, which are more like your code standards, maybe variable names, unused variables, that kind of thing. Okay, so we can close that settings file, and I think we're ready to try it all out. So go ahead and go to the source directory and open up app.tsx. And yes, we should see some red squigglies. And if you make a change, like we'll add some extra lines here and then save the file, it should automatically format, and it always will look nice. So now you don't have to worry about indentation of your HTML. You can just write your code and then save it, and it'll auto format according to your code standards that you've already set up. If you're working on a team, this also forces good habits by making sure you have a consistent style between all of your all the team members and all the code that they're writing. All right, one more thing. If you open up your ESLint RC file, you might notice there's a lot of errors. I personally don't like these, so if we make a change here and save it, it should auto format most of them. The main thing is just using single quotes compared to double quotes based on our Prettier RC configuration. The module.exports is complaining. That's an ESLint problem. So we can actually create a file called ESLint ignore, similar to a get ignore, that ESLint will ignore certain files. Go ahead and open up the GitHub link again and copy the top link, which is .ESLint ignore. And then we're going to go back to VS Code and create a new file at the root directory, .ESLint ignore. Okay, go ahead and paste the two files in, and then we're going to add a file, and we're going to add the .eslintrc.js file. So save that, and then if we go back to ESLint, you should no longer see a red squiggly under module. The other two files are created by Create React App, and they are the setup tests and the other one, the service worker. Oh, the service worker is not there anymore. So Create React App sometimes will create a service worker file, which is okay, but it doesn't follow our code standards, and most of the time you're not even using it, so we are just going to ignore those two files. If in the future there are any other configuration files for another package or some other files that are generated maybe, you might want to add those to the ESLint ignore so that it's not complaining and giving you errors all the time. Last thing, let's go ahead and start up our React application to make sure everything is working. So in the integrated terminal, just run npm start, and sometimes this can take a minute, so we'll come back once it's up. All right, so our local dev server has started up, and we have some good and bad news. The good news is it's working. The bad news is we have an error on the index.tsx file in the source directory. Let's go ahead and check that out. Index.tsx. I think it's probably going to be a formatting thing, so let's go ahead and add a space or whatever to make a change so then we can save it. And now if we go back, perfect. This is the default page that Create React App generates for us. Something cool, if we go to the app.tsx, you can make a change to the file. And then as soon as you save it, it makes the change and you can view it live on your browser. All right, awesome. So this isn't a React tutorial. There will be lots of those coming from my channel in the future, so stay tuned. But in this video, I just wanted to quickly show you how to set up a React TypeScript project and follow some coding best practices by setting up a linter and a code formatter. It's better to have them do it for you than you trying to remember to format your code as you're trying to learn a new framework like React and TypeScript. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully it helped you. Leave a comment down below if you had any issues. Try my best to help out. Give this video a like and subscribe to see more coding videos in the future.